The topic of this video is percent change. We are going to look at different situations, how much they increase or decrease. A few things we need to look at. Percent change, first of all, it describes how much the quantity is increasing or decreasing, but the most important thing is it's comparing it from the original amount. So I'm going to highlight that part. Let's change my color. It's how much it increases or decreases from the original amount. Okay, the steps we're going to use to solve is first we're going to subtract, then we're going to make a proportion, and then we'll cross multiply and divide. Now, when you set up your proportion, the most important thing to know is that the original amount always goes on bottom. Percentages are always out of 100. And the amount you get when you subtract goes up here. So I'm going to write, this is the amount after you subtract. The amount of change is the number you get after you subtract. So here's a question that's already been worked out. It says find the percent change from 540 to 400. It doesn't have a story with it, so the things that I need to focus on is where is it starting from? It's starting from 540. So when I go to set up my proportion, 540 is going to go on the bottom. The number it's starting from goes on the bottom, as well as 100 for the second ratio or fraction. Then when I subtract these two numbers, 540 minus 400, the answer I get is 140. That answer goes above the original amount. Then your next step is we would cross multiply and then divide. So I would multiply these two numbers and then I would divide by my 140. Okay? This first story problem example, it says the price of a pair of shoes increases from 52 to 64. What is the percent change to the nearest percent? First of all, I need to know where did it start from. It started from 52. So earlier we said step 1, subtract your numbers. You always put the biggest number on top when you subtract, so 64 minus 52 is 12. Then step 2 was make your proportion. In the first, the number I started from, remember this always goes on bottom. The number that's from goes on bottom. 52 goes on bottom. Also, 100% always goes on bottom as well. Now, the number I got when I subtracted was 12. 12 goes on top. Then I don't know the number that goes over the 100 because it's a percent. At the end of the question, it did say that I need to go to the nearest percent. So that tells me that I can round. I might not get a whole number, so if I get a decimal, I might need to round it up. Then step 3, the last thing to do was cross multiply. Step 3, cross multiply and divide. The numbers that I multiply are the ones that are diagonal. Okay, anything times 100, that's really easy. You just put the 2 zeros on the back of it. So 12 times 100 is 1200. Then this other number that's left over, this is the one I divide with. So 1200 goes in the box and 52 goes outside the box. Now on your own, you would want to divide this, but it's 23. Let's see, that would subtract 104. Then I get 16 left over. Bring down the 0. Then that's 156. I have a 4 left over. Okay, so it went 23 times. I have 4 left over. I'm going to put a decimal and add a 0 just to see if I should round up 23 or keep 23 the same. So if I add one more 0, this bottom number down here is a 40. 52 is not big enough to go into 40, so that would just leave me with saying it goes in 0 times. So 23.0 is what I got when I divided. That's not anything to round up, so my final answer would just be 23%. Okay, second example. David moved from a house that was 89 miles away from his workplace to a house that is 51 miles away from his workplace. What is the percent change in the distance from his home to his workplace? We're going to start out by saying, what did it start from a house that's 89 miles away? This is my clue that that number will be on the bottom when I set up my proportion. So now that we're ready, number 1 is subtract. The two numbers in the problem were 89 and 51, and the biggest number always goes on top. So 89 minus 51 is 38. Then step 2, now that I know how much it changed, I'm going to set up my proportion. Remember, we just said the number it started from is the one that goes on the bottom. So 89 is going on bottom. 100 is the percent number that always goes on bottom. And the number I got when I subtracted was 38, which is how much it's changing. That always goes on top. And then I don't know the percent number, which is what we're trying to figure out. Now, step 3, since I've set up my proportion, I'm going to cross multiply and then divide. The numbers that I multiply are the ones that are diagonal. Any number times 100 is just that number, so 38, and then put the 2 zeros on the back. The number that's left over is the one we're going to divide with. So 38 goes in the box, or 3800 goes in the box, and then 89 goes outside the box. When you divide this, it's going to show up as 42, okay? 4 times 89 is 356. When you subtract, you get 24. I'm going to bring down the 0. And then 2 times 89 is 178. When you subtract that, you get 62. Now, I'm not going to say 42 remainder 62. I'm going to add a 0. So to do that, I need to put in a decimal. And then I can bring that 0 down. And put my decimal up in my answer. And now 89 can go into 620 6 times. 6 times 89 is 534. And then when I subtract, I get 86. Now, what I'm doing is I'm looking at 42.6. Is this enough to round up to 43 or stay the same? So the way you look at this is the digit that's behind the decimal. Is that 5 or greater? This one is. It's a 6, so that means I would round my answer up to 43. So now he is, the distance, the change in his miles is 43%.